It's the DP Show. I'm D. Palmer. Just got done laying out exactly what my formula for conservatism would be. You got to have some spending in there, you got to have some defense, I guess, and you got to have some American tradition, and how, in fact, most of the conservative... I want to go ahead and clarify this further. The elected conservatives do not match that up. They say that they want to limit spending and the size of government, but every time they have the chance to, they don't. They don't. George W. Bush is the best example of that. Even when he was campaigning, lambasting Al Gore because of all the spending he was going to do, he was leaving out how his proposed government was the second highest or largest proposed government in the history of the country. Same sort of thing here you can expect with Mitt Romney, because he said exactly that. Best case scenario, he's going to scale back spending to 2008 levels. Last time I checked, we were like $14 to $16 trillion in debt as a nation. I think you're going to have to do a little bit better than that, Governor would-be President Romney. And this fella, Paul Ryan, that he just announced as his running mate, the champion of fiscal conservatism from the House, is not much better. And there's not a lot of hope that we could have, that those of us who really think that true conservatism is not just minimizing spending and the size of the government, but also getting back to the actual traditions, the real traditions of the United States of America that were grounded in the individual, in the concept of liberty. These guys aren't going to help us out at all. All right. This is not going to be a good way to have this sort of conversation if we have these two options with Obama and Romney and Biden and Ryan on either side, because these guys are only interested in one thing: expanding government and domination. That's why I started off the last segment with the whole Seinfeld gag, because this is just, you're cheering for laundry. You're cheering for an R and a D in front of a name. You're not cheering for any principles, anybody out there who actually believes in either of these candidates. And I'm not just talking to the people that are all in favor of Romney, Ryan, and all that stuff, because there's a lot of people who feel disenfranchised by everything that Obama did. Remember, he was the anti-war candidate. And what kind of effort did he make to try to scale back warfare? None. That's what. He was also the civil liberty candidate. And tell me what's going on in Guantanamo Bay there, President Obama. So it's not just the right that should feel disenfranchised. It's everybody. It is one and all. That is the greatest case I'm making. All right? Now, you want evidence? You want evidence? Well, I'll give you evidence. And I'm especially going to talk now about Congressman Paul Ryan, who has been getting so much undeserved press because of how he has been supposedly hawking the budgets in Washington, D.C. He is the father of the Ryan budget, the pathway to prosperity. The path to prosperity. Either way, it's not true. No matter how you want to slap lipstick on it, it's not the fact. And I'm going to read to you from a couple of different columnists, the first of which is Jack Kenney from New American. His column titled Veep Pick Paul Ryan is no conservative. So don't just take my word for it. What does he cite? Well, I'm going to read to you, and then I will go back to the formula. Like him or not, the one thing politically aware Americans are supposed to know about Paul Ryan is that he is a fiscal conservative, a bold budget hawk. He is, after all, the prime author of the House budget plan titled Path to Prosperity, to repeal the Obama Health Insurance Program, or Obamacare, turn the Medicaid program for low-income Americans over to the states, and create private insurance option for Medicare beneficiaries starting in 2023. The plan would also turn food stamps and other federal programs for the poor into block grants to the states, with limits on the growth of those programs. If Republican voters have any doubts about Ryan's commitment to budget austerity, they need only hear the Democrats' outcry that Ryan's path to prosperity will be a road to the poorhouse for elderly and low-income Americans. Now, a couple of things. I agree with Ryan in a couple of these different instances where, yeah, I think the Obama healthcare program should be repealed, because I think that it's a horrible law to require Americans to buy anything, especially healthcare, something that is so intimate and individualized as one's healthcare needs, but also because I'm appalled by the way that they are going to direct us into these industries that are going to be housed by their friends. This is crony capitalism at its worst, and it is Romney care on a national scale. All right? Here's the key to my argument. These are two people that are one and the same. This is Jerry Seinfeld's joke about laundry and professional sports teams. These guys are the same human beings, just in different shirts. And Obamacare, Romney care, that's the same argument. It's the same darn thing. But furthermore, what Paul Ryan doesn't understand, for example, by insisting that you privatize insurance options for Medicare beneficiaries starting in 2023, it's going to be the same thing as Obamacare and Romney care. It's all these guys know is how to grease their friends' palms. What they need to do is get out of the health industry and then watch the prices plummet as a result of that. Leave this to the free market. Nobody wants to do that, though, because there's nothing kicking your backs and slushing your funds as a result. That's all that Paul Ryan's version of conservatism is. It's which of my supporters can I ultimately benefit from these different laws. That's the whole concept of privatization isn't necessarily allowing the individual to pursue this on their own as far as they want to. Excuse me, I'm laughing because this whole concept is ridiculous. The privatization is nothing more than fascism. As Gerald Celente is always reminding us, that fascism, according to the founder of fascism, Benito Mussolini, is the merger of the public and private sectors. Mitt Romney, Barack Obama, now Paul Ryan. Those are the choices that we have. Which color of shirt do you want merging your public and private realms? But let me go on with Jack Kenney. But on the other side of the ledger, Ryan's voting record shows a robust support of big spending programs to enlarge the role of the federal government, especially when they are promoted by a Republican in the White House. Ryan voted for all of the big-ticket budget-busting items of the administration of President George W. Bush, including the 1. No Child Left Behind Act and the prescription drug benefit known as Medicare Part D, that's 2, often described as the largest expansion of the welfare state since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. Indeed, now let me interrupt, that is the largest expansion of the medical benefits program since Johnson, in fact, since Nixon, who was responsible for the biggest jump in between there, or 2 Republican presidents, if you're keeping track. Ryan voted to create the new Department of Homeland Security, including the Transportation Security Administration that has harassed air travelers while making aircraft safe from shoes, belt buckles, and grandma's knitting needles. He voted for the Patriot Act, giving government enhanced powers for warrantless snooping into the lives of American citizens as well as foreign nationals. Ryan voted for the Troubled Assets Relief Program that bailed out the too-big-to-fail financial institutions and inspired the Tea Party rebellion against big government and crony capitalism. He backed the auto bailout that turned GM into government motors. This is the greatest fiscal conservative that Congress has to offer us. This is exactly what Seinfeld was talking about, although about professional sports. This is a Democrat in a red shirt, is all that Paul Ryan is. And people are excited about this. In fact, I've seen one thing bounced around Twitter that Paul Ryan's one of the few people that don't want young people to inherit a bankrupted country. Exactly how is that? When he's supporting all this stuff when a Republican is proposing it. All that matters to Paul Ryan is the laundry. He'll cheer the right laundry. He'll boo the bad laundry. When Barack Obama is suggesting that we need to do these things, unless it is a defense entitlement, boo, boo, wrong shirt, boo. But when a Republican or George W. Bush is doing it, well, this is just good lawmaking. I can get behind that. But how does this go against the conservative test? Fiscal conservatism. Do I even need to go through it? I mean, just go back and look at all the different things that he was using or supporting to expand the size of the government and the expense of the government. No Child Left Behind, prescription drugs, Homeland Security, TSA, the Patriot Act. Just transition that one, those last 3 I should say, the Department of Homeland Security, the Transportation Security Administration, and the Patriot Act. How does that line up against these supposed values that everybody on the right reveres that our founding fathers left for us? There's no place for them. There's absolutely no place for them. If you respect the Constitution and the America that the founding fathers had left, it's incompatible. You cannot support such things as the Department of Homeland Security and the Patriot Act in particular. Now, one of the little bit of gray area is the natural freedom to move about, which is something I believe very firmly in, which then I would argue the TSA is just as damaging. If you are making it difficult for somebody to pursue work or even leisure by doing something as natural anymore as hopping on an airplane as the TSA does. It seems to me, little old stupid me, that this is just another attack on natural and civil liberties. But Paul Ryan, the great fiscal conservative, the great conservative, is okay with that. He's, in fact, been supporting as much when Barack Obama has been suggesting as many things. In fact, most conservatives will tell you that's the only thing Obama got right. It's not conservative. It's not conservative because of the cost, the spending that's involved, and it's not conservative because you're turning your back on the American values that you supposedly are in so much support of. Paul Ryan is not a conservative. Look that one up. You can actually find it at Infowars.com, one of Alex Jones' websites. Alex Jones, of course, can be heard right here on iTalk 106.7. Get into it. How about another one, though? This is The Marketing of Paul Ryan by Justin Raimondo. He writes for a variety of publications. This one was published at antiwar.com. Raimondo is a staunch libertarian. He is a true libertarian, not again in the Glenn Beck sense, a libertarian at heart. There's no such thing. Either you is or you isn't libertarian. And this guy is. And he says that according to Paul Ryan, the stakes are even higher today. What stakes? Well, he goes on. Quote Ryan, unlike Britain, which handled leadership to a power that shared its fundamental values, interrupt for commentary, the fundamental value of global domination, end commentary. Today's most dynamic and growing powers do not embrace the basic principles that should be at the core of the international system. First off, commentary, who is saying that this should be at the core of the international system? Who? Because what one person thinks, another's going to think is completely silly, and then you're going to ask another 98 people, and you're going to get another 98 responses. So this must be Paul Ryan talking here. A world without U.S. leadership will be a more chaotic place, a place where we have less influence, and a place where our citizens face more dangers and fewer opportunities. Again, I don't know what he's citing as reference there. This must be the Gospel of Ryan. A world without U.S. leadership will be a more chaotic place. In the industrial world, what we mean when we start complaining about chaos and chaotic places is that the powers that be, the real money behind the scenes, has to actually work to make sure that it maintains that. And we generally ridicule that. Right, left, we don't like that. They use terms like monopoly and stuff like that. But generally, what the complaint is that there is not enough regulation that is keeping the money where it's supposed to be with the super rich. My contention now is that you can make the same argument, though on a diplomatic level, where it's bad for the United States, for NATO, and anybody else who's lined up in there to suffer through chaos, because where that power should remain is with the United States, with NATO, and with everybody else who's lined up in there. That is the argument. It is just like those bad industrialists, okay? They want the power all the way at the top. A place where we have less influence. Over what? And do we have a lot of influence? I mean, it took 8 years to subdue Iraq, and we were there with guns and stuff. Is that influence? Is 8 years' time how we're measuring this influence? Because that doesn't seem like a lot of influence. We're still working. We just had pumped 40,000 troops a couple years ago to try to continue to influence Afghanistan. I would argue, Congressman Ryan, that the Americans don't have near as much influence as you would like to believe, and a place where our citizens face more dangers and fewer opportunities. Well, exactly how is that working out? Because we've exported so many jobs overseas? I bet there's a lot of people who would like to have those opportunities right back here between our shores. It seems like going back to a more American-friendly time of even like 50 or 60 years ago would benefit a lot of people and provide a lot more opportunities. But then he closes it by saying, take a moment and imagine a world led by China or by Russia. Okay, let's start with the former. Let's imagine a world led by China here, Congressman Ryan, one of the last truly free markets that the world knows. Nothing speaks louder in China than does money, and that's just the way it should be. Because if you can go out there and you can get somebody to give you money and you can really pursue an idea, or if you can do something so well that people want to continue to give you money, then what you have is somebody who is making their own success. I don't want any of that. I don't want any part of that. And usually what Washington cites when they start talking about how bad the Chinese are, well, then all the human rights violations that they are always churning out and all that stuff. Don't get me started. because Congressman Ryan and his ilk are turning their backs on the same founding fathers that they so purportedly revere, while doing such ugly things as torturing even suspected criminals. That's un-American. If you revere the founding fathers as much as you say you do, elected conservatives, or even all you people listening who suspect that I'm off my rocker. All right. How does that line up? Remember, spending, ideals, and defense. The defense one, hey, if you want to defend, or you want to feel like you're defending yourself based on how much war you're going out there and making, that's fine. I guess that if that is your nature of conservatism, that is what you're trying to conserve, I can't convince you of anything besides that. I can't do it. The one thing I will insist, and the one thing I need everybody to try to get in here and explain to me, is how can you go out and support such sprawling defense bills and then go back and say that you're a fiscal conservative? All right? Because remember, these budgets, these are just more suggestive things than they are black and white, rock hard, we are going to spend this much money. Otherwise, we wouldn't continue to have all these different appropriations and have all this stink like we had a year ago about how are we going to raise the debt ceiling and all this stuff. If these were firm numbers, there wouldn't be any conversation about raising the debt ceiling. And if we had real conservatives in Washington, there wouldn't be any conversation about raising the debt ceiling. But we don't. We are not being represented, those of us who think that we have conservative political values. And we're not going to have any more of that if we support Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. I'm not saying go out there and support Barack Obama. I'm saying stay home. Stay home and send these clowns a lesson. The BP show is coming up on the other end of this. This has been the DP show. I am DS Palmer on iTalk 106.7. Good night.